Sarah Mitchell was 12 years old when she first saw Prince Harry on television. It was 1997, and the world watched as two young princes walked behind their mother's coffin. While everyone felt sorry for both boys, something about Harry's brave face and red hair captured Sarah's heart completely. Living in a small town in Ohio, Sarah had never been interested in royalty before. Her friends collected boy band posters, but Sarah started cutting out every newspaper photo of Prince Harry she could find. Her bedroom walls slowly transformed into a shrine dedicated to the young prince. Magazine covers, newspaper clippings, and printed internet photos covered every inch of available space. Sarah's mother, Linda, initially thought it was just a phase. Many teenage girls had celebrity crushes, and she assumed Sarah would grow out of it like most kids do. However, as months turned into years, Sarah's fascination with Prince Harry only grew stronger. She learned everything about him: his birthday, his favorite foods, his school grades, and every public appearance he made. By the time Sarah turned 16, she had collected over 3,000 photos of Prince Harry. She knew more about the British royal family than most British citizens did. Her room looked like a museum dedicated to one person, with carefully organized albums, newspaper clippings filed by date, and even a map of England with all the places Prince Harry had visited marked with red pins. Sarah's friends found her obsession strange, but she didn't care. While they talked about local boys and high school crushes, Sarah dreamed of meeting her prince. She would spend hours imagining conversations they might have, picturing how his voice would sound in person, and wondering if he would find her interesting. Her dedication went beyond just collecting pictures. Sarah learned British history, studied the royal family tree going back hundreds of years, and even tried to develop a British accent by watching BBC shows. She read every book written about the royal family, and could recite facts about Prince Harry that even royal reporters didn't know. When Prince Harry joined the military, Sarah followed every news story about his training. When he went to Afghanistan, she worried about his safety every single day. She wrote him letters that she never sent, keeping them in a special box under her bed. Each letter expressed her hopes for his safety and her dreams of meeting him someday. Sarah's devotion affected her daily life in ways that concerned her family. She refused to date anyone in high school, claiming that no ordinary boy could compare to Prince Harry. Her grades suffered because she spent more time reading royal news than studying her textbooks. Her part-time job at a local restaurant helped her save money, but instead of buying clothes or going out with friends, she spent every penny on royal memorabilia. Linda tried talking to her daughter about finding more balanced interests, but Sarah couldn't understand why everyone thought her feelings were unhealthy. To her, Prince Harry represented everything good in the world: kindness, bravery, and nobility. She believed that if she could just meet him once, he would see that she wasn't like other fans. She was different, special, and meant to be in his life. The internet made Sarah's obsession easier to feed. She joined online fan groups where she met other people who shared her passion for the royal family. However, even among devoted royal watchers, Sarah's level of dedication stood out. She updated fan websites with the latest photos, wrote detailed analysis of Prince Harry's public appearances, and spent countless hours discussing every aspect of his life with fellow fans. As Sarah approached her 18th birthday, she made a decision that would change her life forever. She announced to her parents that she was going to London to meet Prince Harry. Linda and her father, Robert, tried to explain that meeting a prince wasn't something ordinary people could just decide to do, but Sarah had already started making plans. She researched every public event Prince Harry attended, studied the security arrangements around royal appearances, and even looked into getting a job that might put her in contact with the royal family. Sarah was convinced that if she could just get to London and position herself in the right place at the right time, destiny would bring them together. Her parents' concerns grew as Sarah's plans became more detailed and unrealistic. She talked about moving to London permanently, finding work near the royal palaces, and dedicating her entire life to being close to Prince Harry. What had started as a teenage crush had evolved into something that worried everyone who cared about Sarah. Against her parents' wishes, Sarah used her 18th birthday money and every penny she had saved from a restaurant job to buy a plane ticket to London. Linda begged her daughter to reconsider, offering to pay for college instead, but Sarah's mind was made up. She believed this trip would change her life forever. Sarah spent weeks preparing for her journey. She studied maps of London until she could navigate the city in her sleep. She memorized the schedules of all royal family members and identified every location where Prince Harry might appear. Her suitcase was packed with gifts she hoped to give him, photo albums she had made, letters she had written over the years, and a special necklace she had bought with his initials engraved on it. The flight to London felt like the longest 8 hours of Sarah's life. She couldn't sleep, eat, or focus on anything except the possibility of meeting Prince Harry. Fellow passengers probably thought she was nervous about flying, but Sarah's excitement was entirely about what awaited her in England. Landing at Heathrow Airport, Sarah felt overwhelmed by the reality of being in the same country as Prince Harry. Every person with red hair made her heart skip a beat, wondering if it might be him traveling in disguise. She took the train into central London, staring out the window and imagining Prince Harry making this same journey. Sarah had booked a small room in a budget hotel near Buckingham Palace. The room was tiny and uncomfortable, but she didn't care about luxury. All that mattered was being close to where Prince Harry might be. She spent her first night walking around the palace gates, hoping to catch a glimpse of any royal family member. The next morning, Sarah began what she called her royal tour of London. She visited every location connected to Prince Harry's life, his former schools, nightclubs he had been photographed leaving, restaurants where he had eaten, and charity events he had attended. At each location, she asked staff if they had ever met him and took photos of herself in places where he had once stood. After 3 days of tourist activities, Sarah decided to take more direct action. She had read online that royal family members sometimes made unannounced visits to their favorite charities. She started spending her days visiting every charity Prince Harry supported, hoping to be there during one of his surprise appearances. Sarah's daily routine became obsessive and exhausting. She would wake up at 5 in the morning, check royal news websites for any announcements about Prince Harry's schedule, then race across London to position herself at locations where he might appear. She carried a professional camera, hoping to get exclusive photos, and always dressed in her best clothes in case she actually met him. The other charity volunteers and staff began to notice Sarah's frequent appearances. Some people found her dedication amusing, while others felt uncomfortable about her obvious obsession. Sarah didn't realize how her behavior appeared to others. She thought she was being clever and strategic. Week by week, Sarah's money dwindled as she extended her stay far beyond her original plan. She moved to cheaper accommodations, eventually staying in youth hostels with shared bathrooms and no privacy. Her parents called daily, begging her to come home, but Sarah insisted she was close to achieving her dream. Sarah's appearance began to suffer from her obsessive schedule. She lost weight because she was too excited to eat regular meals, and dark circles appeared under her eyes from lack of sleep. Her clothes became wrinkled from constant travel around the city, but she was too focused on her mission to care about her appearance. Other royal fans Sarah met in London tried to befriend her, but she had no interest in casual friendships. She only wanted to talk about Prince Harry, and her conversations became repetitive and intense. People started avoiding her because her obsession made them uncomfortable. One evening, while standing outside a charity gala where Prince Harry was supposed to appear, Sarah overheard 2 security guards talking about the American girl who shows up everywhere. She realized they were discussing her, but instead of being embarrassed, she felt proud that people had noticed her dedication. Sarah's behavior escalated when she learned about Prince Harry's favorite pub from a tabloid newspaper. She started spending every evening there, hoping he might stop by for a casual drink. The pub staff eventually asked her to leave because she was making other customers uncomfortable by constantly watching the door and taking photos of every red-haired man who entered. As her second month in London began, Sarah's parents threatened to stop sending her money unless she came home immediately. She was forced to find a job to support her extended stay, taking work at a souvenir shop near Buckingham Palace. Even while working, she kept one eye on the window, hoping to spot Prince Harry walking by. Sarah's co-workers found her behavior strange, but she didn't care what anyone thought. She had come too far to give up now, and she was convinced that persistence would eventually pay off. Every day that passed without meeting Prince Harry only made her more determined to try harder. 3 months into her London adventure, Sarah's persistence finally led to a breakthrough. While working at the souvenir shop, she overheard a conversation between two well-dressed women discussing a private charity event happening the following week. One woman mentioned that Prince Harry would be attending to present awards to young volunteers. Sarah's heart raced as she pretended to organize postcards while listening to every detail. The women discussed the location, a small community center in North London, and mentioned that it was a private event with limited security because of its intimate nature. This was exactly the opportunity Sarah had been waiting for. That night, Sarah researched everything she could find about the charity and the upcoming event. She discovered that the organization helped disadvantaged youth, which made perfect sense for Prince Harry's involvement. Sarah spent the entire week planning how to get inside the event, or at least position herself where she could see Prince Harry arrive and leave. Sarah quit her job at the souvenir shop, telling her manager she had found something better. She spent her last remaining money on a new outfit, a simple but elegant dress that she hoped would help her blend in with the charity workers and volunteers who would be attending the event. The morning of the charity event, Sarah arrived at the community center hours before it was scheduled to begin. She positioned herself across the street where she could see everyone who entered the building. Her camera was ready, and she had practiced exactly what she would say if she got the chance to speak to Prince Harry. As the afternoon progressed, Sarah watched dozens of people arrive for the event. She recognized some faces from photos she had seen online, charity workers, local politicians, and young people who were probably receiving awards. But no Prince Harry yet. Around 4 o'clock, a black car with tinted windows pulled up to the front of the community center. Sarah's hands started shaking as she realized this might be the moment she had been waiting for her entire adult life. Security guards emerged from the car first, followed by a tall man with red hair wearing a dark blue suit. Sarah's vision blurred with tears as she saw Prince Harry in person for the first time. He was more handsome than any photograph had captured, and his smile was even more charming than she had imagined. For a moment, she was too overwhelmed to move or even take pictures. Prince Harry spent several minutes greeting people outside the community center before going inside. Sarah managed to take dozens of photos, getting closer and closer as she moved through the small crowd that had gathered to catch a glimpse of the prince. She was now less than 50 feet away from the person she had dreamed about meeting for over a decade. When Prince Harry disappeared inside the building, Sarah faced a decision that would define the rest of her trip. She could be satisfied with seeing him from a distance, or she could try to find a way inside the event. Without hesitation, she chose to take the risk. Sarah walked boldly to the front entrance of the community center, hoping her new dress and confident attitude would help her blend in with the invited guests. The security guard at the door asked for her invitation, and Sarah's heart sank as she realized her plan was about to fail. Just as Sarah was about to be turned away, a kind woman in her 50s approached the entrance. She had been watching Sarah from across the street and could see how disappointed the young woman was. The woman, who introduced herself as Margaret, was a longtime volunteer with the charity. Margaret could tell that Sarah was a devoted royal fan, and something about her sincere disappointment touched her heart. After a brief conversation, Margaret learned that Sarah had traveled from America specifically hoping to meet Prince Harry. Against her better judgment, Margaret decided to help. Margaret told the security guard that Sarah was her assistant for the evening, helping with photography for the charity's newsletter. The guard, who knew Margaret well, didn't question her explanation and allowed both women to enter the community center. Sarah could barely contain her excitement as she walked into the same building where Prince Harry was giving his speech. She could hear his voice echoing through the hallway, and Tears began streaming down her face as she realized her impossible dream was actually coming true. Margaret led Sarah to a small side room where she could compose herself before the event ended. She gently explained that Sarah would need to behave professionally and respectfully if she wanted to stay for the reception afterward. Sarah promised she would be on her best behavior, grateful beyond words for this unexpected kindness. Through a small window in the side room, Sarah could see Prince Harry presenting awards to young volunteers. His genuine warmth and enthusiasm for the charity's work made her admire him even more. This wasn't just a photo opportunity for him. He clearly cared about the people he was meeting and the cause he was supporting. As the formal presentation ended, Margaret explained that there would be a brief reception where Prince Harry would mingle with guests and volunteers. This would be Sarah's chance to actually meet him face to face, something she had fantasized about for over 10 years, but never truly believed would happen. The reception began, and Sarah found herself in the same room as Prince Harry for the first time. Her hands trembled as she held a cup of tea, trying to appear calm while her heart hammered in her chest. Prince Harry moved through the room graciously, spending time with each group of volunteers and charity workers. Margaret stayed close to Sarah, gently coaching her on royal protocol and reminding her to let Prince Harry lead any conversation. Sarah nodded, but inside she felt like she might faint from the overwhelming emotion of being so close to someone who had been the center of her world for years. When Prince Harry was about 10 feet away, talking to a group of young award recipients, Sarah's carefully planned composure began to crumble. Tears started flowing down her cheeks as the reality of the moment hit her. This wasn't a dream or a fantasy. Prince Harry was actually there, in the same room, breathing the same air. Margaret noticed Sarah's emotional state and gently suggested they step outside for fresh air, but Sarah shook her head firmly. She had waited too long for this opportunity to leave now, even if she was struggling to control her emotions. Prince Harry, finishing his conversation with the young volunteers, began moving towards Sarah's side of the room. Margaret straightened Sarah's hair and whispered encouragement, telling her to simply be herself. Sarah tried to wipe away her tears, but they kept coming as Prince Harry came closer and closer. When Prince Harry was just 5 feet away, he noticed Sarah's emotional state. His expression showed genuine concern as he saw this young woman crying while everyone else was celebrating. Instead of moving past her to the next group, he stepped directly towards Sarah with a kind smile. "Are you all right?" Prince Harry asked, his voice gentle and caring. Sarah's world stopped spinning as she heard him speak directly to her. His accent was exactly as she had imagined, and his eyes were even more brilliant blue than any photograph had captured. Sarah opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. The emotional overwhelm of finally meeting the person she had admired for over a decade left her speechless. Fresh tears streamed down her face as she stared at Prince Harry, unable to believe this was really happening. Margaret quickly stepped in to explain that Sarah was a devoted royal supporter who had traveled from America specifically hoping to meet Prince Harry. She mentioned that Sarah had been following his charitable work for years and was simply overcome with emotion at finally meeting him in person. Prince Harry's expression softened even more as he understood the situation. He had met many devoted royal fans over the years, but something about Sarah's genuine emotional response touched him. This wasn't someone seeking attention or trying to get something from him. This was pure, heartfelt admiration. "You came all the way from America?" Prince Harry asked Sarah directly, stepping closer to hear her response. Sarah managed to nod through her tears, finally finding her voice enough to whisper, "Yes, Your Royal Highness." Prince Harry smiled warmly and said, "Please just call me Harry, and thank you for supporting the work we do here. It means more than you know to have people who care enough to travel so far." His genuine gratitude made Sarah cry even harder, overwhelmed by his kindness and humility. For the next few minutes, Prince Harry engaged Sarah in gentle conversation, asking about her trip to London and her interest in charitable work. Sarah managed to tell him about some of the organizations she had volunteered with back in Ohio, inspired by his own charitable activities. Prince Harry listened attentively to everything Sarah said, treating her with the same respect and interest he had shown the charity workers and volunteers. He asked thoughtful questions about her volunteer work and seemed genuinely impressed by her dedication to helping others. When Sarah mentioned that she had been following his charitable work since she was a teenager, Prince Harry looked touched, but also slightly concerned about the intensity of her devotion. He gently encouraged her to pursue her own passions and make her own difference in the world, rather than just following his activities. Margaret had been discreetly taking photos during the conversation, knowing this would be the most important moment of Sarah's life. When Prince Harry noticed the camera, he graciously posed for several pictures with Sarah, putting his arm around her shoulders for a proper photograph. As their conversation was winding down, Prince Harry reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small card. He wrote a brief, personal message thanking Sarah for her support and encouraging her charitable work, then signed it with his name. The gesture was simple, but incredibly meaningful to Sarah. Prince Harry had to move on to meet other guests, but before leaving, he took both of Sarah's hands in his and said, "Thank you for caring so much about helping others. The world needs more people like you." Sarah was crying too hard to respond, but she squeezed his hands gently to show her gratitude. After Prince Harry moved away, Sarah collapsed into a chair, emotionally drained but completely fulfilled. Margaret sat beside her, offering tissues and water while Sarah tried to process what had just happened. The meeting had exceeded every fantasy Sarah had ever imagined. Prince Harry had been kind, genuine, and truly interested in her as a person. Sarah looked at the signed card in her trembling hands, reading Prince Harry's personal message over and over. He had written, "Dear Sarah, thank you for your kindness and dedication to helping others. Keep making a difference. Best wishes, Harry." It was addressed specifically to her, in his own handwriting, creating a personal connection she would treasure forever. The days following Sarah's meeting with Prince Harry passed in a blur of emotional processing and deep reflection. She spent hours staring at the photographs Margaret had taken, hardly believing that the smiling woman standing next to Prince Harry was actually her. The signed card never left her hands except when she carefully placed it in a protective sleeve each night. Margaret had given Sarah her contact information, and they met for coffee several times during Sarah's remaining week in London. The older woman became an unexpected mentor, helping Sarah understand the significance of what Prince Harry had told her about making her own difference in the world. Margaret shared stories about her decades of charity work, explaining how much more fulfilling it was to help people directly rather than just admiring someone else's charitable efforts from a distance. She gently suggested that Sarah had been living her life through Prince Harry's achievements instead of creating her own meaningful impact. For the first time since her obsession began, Sarah started questioning whether her devotion to Prince Harry had been healthy or helpful. Meeting him in person had been wonderful, but his encouragement for her to pursue her own charitable work made her realize how much of her own potential she had ignored. Sarah began visiting some of the charities Prince Harry supported, but this time she went as a volunteer rather than a fan hoping to spot him. She worked at soup kitchens, helped with fundraising events, and spent time reading to elderly people in care homes. For the first time in years, Sarah felt fulfilled by her own actions rather than by following someone else's life. The work was rewarding in ways Sarah had never expected. When she helped serve meals to homeless people or spent an afternoon talking with lonely seniors, she felt a sense of purpose that had been missing from her years of royal watching. She started understanding what Prince Harry meant about making her own difference. As her extended stay in London came to an end, Sarah felt conflicted about returning to Ohio. She had achieved her impossible dream of meeting Prince Harry, but more importantly, she had discovered a passion for helping others that felt genuinely her own. The question was how to continue this new direction when she went home. Margaret helped Sarah research charitable organizations in Ohio that worked on issues similar to those Prince Harry supported. They found several groups focusing on youth development, military veterans, and mental health awareness, all causes close to Prince Harry's heart, but with local impacts Sarah could contribute to directly. Sarah's parents were shocked when she called to tell them about meeting Prince Harry, but they were even more surprised by the change in her attitude. Instead of talking obsessively about the prince himself, Sarah spoke enthusiastically about the charity work she had been doing and her plans to continue helping people back home. The flight back to Ohio gave Sarah 8 hours to think about how dramatically her life had changed. She still treasured her meeting with Prince Harry and always would, but it no longer defined her entire existence. His encouragement had awakened something in her that felt more authentic and sustainable than her years of obsession. Back home in Ohio, Sarah's bedroom still contained thousands of photos and memorabilia from her years as Prince Harry's biggest fan. But instead of adding to the collection, she began carefully packing most of it away, keeping only a few special items, including the photograph and signed card from their meeting. Sarah enrolled in college to study social work, inspired by her conversations with Prince Harry about helping others and her volunteer experiences in London. Her parents were relieved and proud to see their daughter finally pursuing her own goals rather than living vicariously through a celebrity. The local newspaper wrote a story about Sarah's meeting with Prince Harry and her new dedication to charitable work. Instead of focusing on the celebrity encounter, Sarah emphasized Prince Harry's message about making your own difference and encouraged other young people to find ways to help their communities. Sarah began volunteering with several local organizations, applying the same passionate dedication she had once reserved for royal watching to actually helping people in need. She worked with homeless shelters, youth mentoring programs, and veteran support groups, discovering talents and interests she never knew she had. Months after returning from London, Sarah received an unexpected letter forwarded through one of Prince Harry's official channels. He had heard about her charitable work in Ohio and wanted to encourage her continued efforts. The brief note meant everything to Sarah, but this time it motivated her own work rather than consuming her thoughts. Years later, Sarah would look back on her obsession with Prince Harry as a necessary journey that led her to discover her true calling. Meeting him had been the fulfillment of a childhood dream, but his encouragement to pursue her own path had been the real gift that changed her life forever. Sarah eventually became a professional social worker, dedicating her career to helping disadvantaged youth find their own paths to success. She kept the photograph and signed card from Prince Harry in her office, not as shrine items, but as reminders of the moment when someone she admired encouraged her to become the person she was meant to be. The young woman who once spent every penny traveling to London chasing a fantasy had transformed into someone making real differences in real people's lives. Prince Harry's kindness had given her exactly what she needed, not a romantic fairy tale, but the confidence to write her own meaningful story.